The headlines. Arsenal beat Sheffield United 3-2 to strengthen their grip on the championship. At Twickenham, the Australian Wallabies beat England by 11 points to 0. And there's another test match century for the great Don Bradman. Our sports report headlines today: Arsenal's slide continues. A goalless draw at home to Queen's Park Rangers keeps them in third place. Liverpool are foiled at last, but it's rain that beats them at Derby. Celtic's Frank McAvenny scores twice, past two Rangers keepers, as Celtic win the Old Firm rematch. And the rest win the trial at Twickenham to confuse the selectors, but no such problems for the Scots at Murrayfield.
Barclays League Division 1. Arsenal 0, Queen's Park Rangers.
Two Rangers keepers.
What are you two wandering about dressed like that for in this weather?
And the rest win the trial at Twickenham.
You'll catch your death of cold.
But no such problems for the
Can I give you a lift?
At Murrayfield. But one thing never changes on Sports Report: the classified football results are always the next item. They're read, as they've been for the last 13 years, by James Alexander Gordon.
Where can I take you then, ladies?
It's not far. Turn here.
You can come in if you like.
I'm supposed to be somewhere.
Maybe then we can thank you properly for the lift.
But why not? What harm could it do, hey?
Okay, this is Sapphires, Sapphic Vampyres, if you hadn't guessed why I called it that. I took it, what I did was, I had this idea. I watched Vampyres 1974, Vampire spelt with a Y. I had this idea after doing the last two opening sequences, which were from stuff I'd done, my ideas, and I was watching a vampire and Hammer horror thing, and I don't think this is actually Hammer horror Vampyres 1974, but it's the same sort of ilk. I think it's a Spanish director, but it amazed me firstly that something that sexual got through past Mary Whitehouse. In England we used to have this one woman who in the 70s and 80s, maybe 80s as well, just dominated whatever went through, and she very rarely let anything. She wasn't too prudish, but she was that sort of tea drinking nanny type. And Mary Whitehouse, but she somehow this went past her. Maybe she was ill that day, but yeah, there's quite a bit of extras in there, and I kind of like that because I want to test the NSFW side, and I did have NSFW in this, and then I took it out because it just didn't feel right. And I've said before, with NSFW, apply it like it's hot chili and don't overdo it. You really don't need much. But anyway, I'm getting distracted. Yeah, so what I thought I'd do was because it's taking so long to do these opening sequences, and they're not a full story, they're just intros, like trailers, and it kind of annoys me that it's like that. I thought, right, what I'll do is I want to bring back from the dead, as it were, the Hammer vibe. Because I realised it would fit everything. It's low quality acting, it's low quality film footage, but it's got an aesthetic and all the things in it. You can do weird stuff because you've got vampires or horror, and there's dialogue and there's everything, and it's not a high bar to have to hit because it's from the 70s or 80s. So it made sense. So the next thing I did was took the story. I didn't even need to. ChatGPT knew the story, and I went, give me a 5-minute version and make sure I don't break any copyright or IP intellectual property issues. And it was like, look, it's fine as long as you don't use their footage or too obviously use something that says Hammer or that. So you can actually use the same story, no problem. So I did. As you can see in my storyboard, these are all the shots. I had 30 shots. I was going to make it 5 minutes long. It worked as a kind of quick idea, but then when I actually did it, it didn't work visually as I was starting to do it, and I had to start padding in these in-between things. So we've got this origin moment that I did in sepia that you saw, overdid I should say. The other thing I will add straight away is I used colorization on this in Davinci Resolve to add halation and color, and I had to bring a lot of these shots into a similar homogeneous nighttime look, which you don't get because asking Comfy UI for evening, sometimes you'll get that. That's a bad example actually. Sometimes you'll get that kind of light and other times you get this kind of light. So you have to homogenize them, and don't do that in Comfy. I do that in Davinci Resolve, and I'm not very good at it. I'll share a link to Cullen. I always forget his surname, but he's brilliant, and he gives you everything you would need to know as a starting point for learning colorization, which if you're going to do this kind of stuff, you're going to need to learn about. Even I'm terrible at it. I overdo it, but then again, Hammer Horror, overdo it. Why not? I also used a prompt that was fairly descriptive in it. Yeah, here you go. I've been adding in this, there it goes. I'll add in the 3 colours, triple colours for every shot, and then I'll add in, I got ChatGPT again to go, I asked it what that Hammer House look was and to define it for prompts. So I used that in all my prompts, and I have been working to 2.391. I've just used it in all of them when making the images. I haven't necessarily used it again when doing the video because the video will use what it sees anyway, driven in Comfy UI. But anyway, that's the basics of it. Lots and lots of, again, this was about 2 or 3 weeks work. I did this in March. It's the last one I've done, and again, there's not enough dialogue, and I need to get to doing more dialogue and push myself there. And I think the next quarter I'm going to spend between April, May and June, I will try to push myself to dialogue, but at the same time there's other things I want to do. So some worked, some didn't in this. It's been 5 minutes talking already, but let's just go through it quickly with the sound low. I'll keep my headphones on. Okay, first shot, great. That's very Hammer, isn't it? I've overdone the grain, as you can see. I put film grain on in Davinci, and I've overdone it slightly. I need to reduce it, but this is all test and measure. Now here, I couldn't get the women to look the same. I had real trouble with character consistency, and I'd have to go back through it all again. Partway through this, LTX 2.3 came out, so all of this early stuff is LTX 2. There's a thing where LTX makes guys skip when they're running, which is a bit weird. This was a bit over exaggerated, but you know, you get the idea of the origin moment. It doesn't, you don't really need to say much else with it. I did the music in the background. I jumped between quite a few different styles. I wanted something more Hammer, a bit more 70s, but nothing really
The
worked.
headlines. Arsenal
Now-
beat Sheffield United 3-2 to
This is an important point to note, and I mentioned it in the last one, but the whole concept of show don't tell. When you're putting these ideas together, really think about, I'm finding it a fascinating exercise, but really think about how the sound and the light or things in it will inform the viewer without you having to say, hey, it's 1970s and now we're back in the modern, you know, that's exposition is going to be really boring for the viewer. They don't want to hear it. I watched a show last night, which is a series with Jeremy Irons in, which I really like, which is a classic tale, the, oh my God, I've forgotten the name now. The Masked Man? No. The one where he gets put in prison on an island in Elba and for being a Napoleon spy and that. Jeremy Irons is in it. And it's a modern take of the old classic, but the name slips me at the moment. But there's way too much exposition and it gets really boring. And especially if you know the story. And I was kind of surprised they did that because they're doing a really good job of it. And then Jeremy Irons is going, and here's the treasure map and X, if you follow the rabbit stone to the, it's like really like, somehow feels really overdone. But anyway, I'm digressing again. So something to learn is showing without using exposition. And a brilliant one, even if I say so myself, was sticking football on here, football news, because I think it immediately informs people of so many things. Like maybe you have to be British to understand how big football was in the 70s, but it just says everything. And it places it in time because of the speaking and what they're saying. It places it in England. It places it. You've got a Mini as well, which is not a very great rendition of Mini, but that also kind of the era. There's so much information passed, and I said it last time. Sight, visual, and sound are like information buckets, and they're really important to use, and you can use them really well, or you can use them really badly. I'm learning, and that's one of the things is to look for trick opportunities. It actually happened because it felt really empty and I didn't want to do music to it and I couldn't work out what to do. So I went, just do the car radio. And I didn't fade it in and out as the car goes by, and that seems to work as well. So that's fine. The colorization, a bit iffy. I had some problems. This guy's wrong.
strengthen their
And
grip on the championship.
I tried masking it in Davinci and that didn't work. So what I did was I did a second shot with him pushed in harder and it also didn't work. So I blended them both and there's been problems with that. So there's still massive problems with character consistency, especially when your character is only showing up for a short period, because how do you target that short period? Very difficult. Something for me to figure out. I've been looking at, I'm purely using LTX and I'm going to stay in that until further notice. I'm using the 2.3 model. I changed partway through this, but went back and did some like this one I did with the LTX 2.3. But the add multi-guide node I've discovered actually does work with multiple images. I didn't think it did. It didn't in the LTX2 for me, but it does sort of. But you have to be really, it's a bit finicky and you have to get the frame number right, and it needs to know it can do a thing between the two. And so, but it's something I'm going to explore more as I
by
go.
11 points to 0. And there's another test match century.
The colouring's all
John Bradley.
wrong. It's not quite right, and it's not very Hammer. It's pushing
Arsenal
into
slide continues.
amateur
A goal restored home to
colorisation
Queen's Park
techniques here, I
Rangers keeps
think.
them in third place.
Little
Liverpool
things,
foiled at
handbrake.
last, but it's rain that beats them at Derby.
They're just
Celtic's
little
Frank
touches that
McAvenny
the brain
scores twice,
subconsciously
past two
really
Rangers
needs.
keepers,
Him
as Celtic
creaking
win
in
the
a
Old
chair.
Firm rematch. And the rest win the trial at
What are
Stuff
these
like
two
that
up
to
to?
Now,
confuse the
again-
selectors.
Oh God, I could analyse so much. I should probably just let it run. I'm really struggling with getting this shot because once I put them back in, then for some reason it
No
would
such
not
problems
do
for the
this
Scots at
turn. Instead, it sort of zoomed into. It was looking out the front window, then suddenly
What are
it
you
was looking
two
out
wandering
the side
about
window.
dressed like that for in this weather?
This was another shot that was difficult. I eventually changed him. That was one of the last jobs I did, was change this guy out, and that worked fine, luckily. I used exactly the same workflow and the settings, because what I was getting was this car was driving off, or traffic was going back past the other side.
You'll catch your death of cold.
It's sort of
Can I give you a
weird behaviour, but it's good
One
enough, it
thing never
works.
changes on Sports Report. The classified football
Again, I
results are
tried
always
to
the
change
next
these two, and I
Red,
couldn't.
as they've been for
When
the
the
last
image
30.
just wasn't giving me the proper swap of their faces, and I don't really know why, and I kind of gave up. Rule of 3 or 4. Give it 3 or 4 goes. If you can't do it, move on. You know, it'll be fixed in the future.
18 years by James Alexander.
That's the theory.
Where
This
can
is
I take
another
you,
scene.
ladies?
It's weird.
It's not
I
fun.
wrote some 70s cheese music and then put that in, thinking that might solve it. But this just feels weird and empty. And I had him doing more talking, and that felt wrong. So I've not really solved. I'm open to comments on this, but this scene here, with him in the car, something feels wrong, and none of the things I tried to fix fixed it.
Where can I take you then, ladies?
Oh, wait,
It's
look
not
at the
far.
eyes. Yeah, I couldn't. It didn't have the right
Turn
mood,
here.
and I'm not sure why. Then the colorization gone wrong, but this was a horrible shot. This was one where I spent an extra bit of time trying to fix these, because first it was giving me a woman, and then at some point it pushes her into the front driving seat, and it always wants to make it left-hand drive, even though it's a British Mini. And then there's this weird thing comes out from there, if you'd notice. This is because I layered the fixed one over the top of the wrong one, and then blended it in with opacity, all in Davinci Resolve. I can't remember why I had to do that. There was some reason why I had to use both. I think, oh yeah, I've got cars, extra cars and weird things, people or something going on, but then I've got this weird blemish, and I thought, well, you know, maybe anyone looking at it will go, oh, there's some sort of ghostly thing following them, and why not? Another shot I need to fix, where are the people in the car? But it was coming from off shot to, you see them appear at the end as it suddenly snaps into focus. There you can see they're in the car at the end. I used the first frame, last frame. There was an empty frame, and then there was that frame, and it just didn't put the people in. So I'm going to have to use an extra frame in there and hope I'll make it work. But I'm not going to, because I'm not coming back to it. Move on,
Come
move
in
on.
if you like.
It's supposed to be somewhere.
This I had to chop
Maybe
up,
then we can thank you properly for the lift.
and I actually spent ages putting the guy's face here, and then realised that didn't work. So I've zoomed in, and it's just why it's super blurry. The halation and grain is me adding it in after, but I really like halation. It's like, makes me feel good, but I always overdo it. But it's hammer.
But why not? What harm could it?
I'm also a musician, and it's really hard not to turn everything into a music video, because I make tunes for the background and go, oh, I love this tune, it's so good, and then it suddenly becomes a music video. I'm trying to get away from it, but
It do, hey?
also I really like it. So, rules be damned. It's a cracking tune. And this is without doubt my favourite shot. It was just him looking perfect. All the expressions are perfect for this moment. It's sort of like, love it. And then I really like where it kicks in with them suddenly lifting off the ground. That felt like a good moment. Yeah, that works for me. A bit fluffy around the edges, but I had problems with them looking like dolls, and I had to kind of keep going until I got one that didn't look like dolls too much. vampire dolls. And this was blurry because it had to kind of match. And that was a good transition. Accidental, but it worked. Oh, there's that weird running again. Every time I've got to look into this, because every time I make someone run, it seems to be when it's away from the camera, they do these weird little skippy moves, and I'm not sure what. Look at his arms. But it's this double. Doesn't make sense. Bats. Totally robbed. They have bats in the original, but a lot shorter. I was having to fill out some time here, you might have noticed. It's because it's got to fit the music now, because I like the song too much. Can you hear me? I'm being too loud, maybe. This was really cheesy, so I cut it early, and then I've got colours going wrong here, so I'd have to mask that out to get it back to the proper blue, but I wanted that blue. Same here, but I wanted that red, and I really like it. It's got a kind of warm feeling, and I like how they sniff him. It's like sniffing their food. And then, zip. That is actually, that last bit, that is sped up to 1000 frames per second to get it happening quick. Whoop. So that was a full 10-second shot that I sped up to 150 seconds, so she goes, ah. And that's it. That's as far as I've got at this stage at the end of March, and now I've got to decide where I'm going next. And I'm either going to double back and work on the dialogue, which if I was being the goodest boy I would do, because that was the plan. But I've got a funny feeling I'm going to end up deciding to do 3 more opening sequences of a couple of my books. 3 of my books, actually. 2 books and a musical. Rockstar Pussy Productions, which is both kind of comedy ones, and Black Magic, which is a musical I wrote. And yeah, I might do those, or I might, yeah, I don't know, we'll work it out. Anyway, I will be sharing more on the YouTube channel and the Patreon on how to do things once I get lined up with what I'm doing next. It will be with LTX 2.3 unless some amazing new model comes out, but I think that's going to be the one. And I'm going to try and stay focused again for the next 3 months, make content and avoid too much research, because it's just so time consuming and never stops. Anyway, I hope you got something out of that. That'll do for today.